the handbook in German on calls, but had taken it upon himself to translate it further from English into German, or from German into German, if you will, using the English definitions. And prior to most of the sessions that they were having and teaching, he'd get into a very heavy discussion with the club teacher on how these movements were supposed to work. And between the two of them, they figured out how they were supposed to teach this to the new dancers. As I said, it was common at the time. And another thing that was common is because of the necessity, and it's still happening today, almost immediately after graduation, Claus started his first class as a teacher. And like many of us that started our first class as a teacher, very quickly found out there's a very big difference between teaching square dance movements to dancers and calling a square dance. The first part is actually pretty easy. The second part, not so easy, and it requires a lot of trial and error. But as a new caller, there was a lot of help from the dancers and from the other callers. And about 20 years later, 1999, I think we hit, Claus was in the position of having to teach new callers how to call. And as I think he succinctly puts it, I learned more about calling from teaching new callers how to call than I ever did about learning how to call. It required a new look, and that led to Claus developing his own system, writing his own material, and shortly thereafter, and a few of the people in the session today that in Europe have seen Claus's presentations on his system of calling, which is a different look at sight calling, no pun intended, which is, it incorporates a lot of the other systems, simplified method of the other systems, but it seems a lot more complicated if you can't let go. If you approach it with an open mind, it's a great system to improve what you have in your toolbox, or if you don't have these tools in your toolbox, it's a great way to start. Claus calls from basic to A2 as well as a real hexagon group, so I'm not going to give any much more away on Claus's presentation, but please put your hands together and welcome Claus. I'm not going to say your last name because I keep messing it up and I feel embarrassed to do so, but thank you for coming in.
Yeah, Mel, thank you for an introduction. First of all, I will excuse my bad English. I hope you will understand me. The most problem will be if you have comments, the problem is that I will understand you. If you have questions or something, it may be better put it in the chat so I can copy and put it in the translator, but I try my best.
I could volunteer to translate if so desired.
Yes, thanks for, I have some German callers. If I'm hanging, help me out. Why I'm doing this is very easy. In the Corona time, I was long times internet and found the OC Callers website. I saw a lot of videos recorded from any presenters, and I was so happy to learn so much. And at the end of the most of the presentations, Mel asked for ideas for more presentations, and so I thought I can give you a little bit, maybe some new ideas. I try to go to my presentation. Maybe this one. Okay. Yeah, my theme is the monitoring and resolving squares. The other look I called. This will be part one. I sent Mel a full presentation, and we talked about and said it's so much information. It may be better in 2 sessions. So this will be part one. What we'll do, who is Claus? the most thing to know about me is in the introduction. My system, a lot of rules, some differences from normal or more common systems, and something new maybe, and some examples. And at the end, a little bit of questions and discussions. At part 2, we have some more rules and a few examples, and again, discussions. A little bit of, for me, left picture is in 84, I think. These are the things Mel said. Yes, I start calling without any material. I had no caller who could help me. I had no chance to get to visit a caller school or something. So I only had my handbook and my own class. So I called with try and error. The reason I did my own system, by learning my own system, I used some own terms and names for something. For example, the zero box is something I learned in the 90s. And now I can forget it, it's the corner box. I found some rules, so I will show you before we started my system. I found there are 3 states in Square. There is, I call it state A, everyone has their partners. One has partner and the other couple has not, or nobody has their partner. The 50% on B is because you have two couples memorized, and it could be couple 1 or the other couple, mostly number 4. I think there are different parts of state A and B, and I call them real and false A or B. That means if in a square, the partners have, but together, have at the hand, it's a real A, but you can have a situation the partner is in the same half of a square, but not at the end. That's I called false. Some examples. This is a real A or a false A. Same for B. Another important thing is that there are not a lot of figures changed the case from A to B or for B to A. I call it the A-B changer. And give me some examples of that. So, can you see the terminations? Okay. When we start this,
Yes.
we see we have an, it might be a real A, still A, and you can call some what you want. Mostly the case does not change. False A, false A, in this moment we have a C, but C works like an A, but it's not easy to work with. Still A, no changes. Another sequence, we start with B. If we put the axis, we can see one couple is paired, the other not in the same half.
Okay, so just to clarify, if I may, Klaus, before you move on.
Yeah.
So when you're saying an A or a real A, that's when your key couples are on the same, within the same plane on the axis, whether north, south, or east, west, all four of them are together. Is that correct?
Let's go back to any part of A.
Is a real A when they're holding hands?
Normally, yes. I come later to that. If we have ocean waves, in this case must be the same facing direction, because an ocean wave is nothing than facing couples with a touch to a wave, and if they step through, the handhold is still again. So for the real A in ocean waves is the same facing direction. So we have, if we have the blue line, both couples are paired. If we have the road, one is here and one is here, it's a real A. A little bit later. Here comes the ocean wave. Too much. There's still a real A because the facing direction is the same. And we see the red line. It seemed to be a C. No one has partnered, but you can also use the blue line, and the red are in the same half and the green are also in the same half. So they're home, and the same thing works with a B. And you can see that at any time you stop, here in this case, the green pair is couple is paired, the red not. When we have this one, if we take the blue line, the green couple is paired. If you take the red line, the red couple is paired, the green not. So it's a clear B. There are a lot of figures you can use and no changes. So now we take a look on the AB changer. Start with an A. Here comes an AC-doozy. What does an AC-doozy means? The ends circulate and one person goes from one half to the other and be changed from A to B. Whenever one person crosses the center line, it could be the red or the blue. In this case, we come to a flutter wheel. So the lady goes and then both goes. It's in fact is at the end of a flutter wheel, the boy will crosses the line. So we had the AB changer. Back to A. Very important figure for as an AB changer is a single file circulate. Comes next because one boy crosses to the other half. And we had after the single file circulate a B. You can see this half, the red are paired, or up and down half, the green. It's just a wonderful B. Same is when center is doing a swing through. One person crosses and we back in A. An AB changer is whenever one person crosses the line goes from one half to the other. When we normally call with 8 dancers, the case A and B does not change without some figures. If the centers dance in the middle, there are some more changers. Back to the presentation. I found, and you know, that we have 8 element left spots. I made my own element left spots. That means last or 2 years ago, I learned mental image with Don Beck, and the mental image callers have their element left spots, but I have my own. 4 of this element left spot could be used for home resolution. That's very important. Then, because I found that a lot of callers doing the wrong element left spots for home resolution. They call element left, grand right and left, you're home, but they are not, the dancers are not really home. They're always nearly home. and that is not good calling for me. The 4 element left spot for home resolution can be used in state B. This will be part of the next session. Here are my 8 element left spots. I numbered them from the standard corner box related to couple number 1. Head square through 4, and this is number 1 element left spot. And then we can do a pass-through trade by to reach the next spots. And I counted them 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's my important element left spots, because that are the spots that can be used for home resolutions. And the number 5, 6, 7, and 8 cannot be used for home resolution and normally used in case A. I found normally we do not need an element left. Why do we need an element left? Some callers said it's a reward for the dancers. I think it's not. I think it's a reward for the caller, because the caller needs the corner. The reward for the dancers is not an element left. The reward is getting back to the partner after an element left. So we have not only element left spot, we have partner contact spots. And that's these. Number 1 is that point that the dancers reach after an element left of number 1. And that's the importance points for the dancers. An element left is also a very important figure, because element left is a transformation from a normally mostly used 2x4 formations to a circle. It's important because if you use element left, you will get a circle and you cannot come back to a line of 4, for example. Here comes a few differences from my system to, I think, normal systems. That's what the normal, the other callers do. So you memorized 2 couples and the corner. I think that is what every one of you memorized. And you can say, if pair 1 and pair 4 and the corner is okay, then everyone is in sequence. I know that some lady callers memorized 1 and 2. It works the same. But my system is, I almost memorized 2 persons, two couples, but I never knew the corner. I knew the sequence relationship of these 2 boys. And I say, if pair 1 and pair 4, okay, and the sequence of these 2 boys, there must be a corner. Sometimes when I get dance, and the caller at the stage are lost and asked me, hey, Klaus, who's your corner? could not help him. I don't know my corner. I can finish the square, but I don't know the corner. I can count him, but I know it. I did not know him. In my system, you have to learn some more rules, but if you have the rules learned, the square can be resolved much faster. Some more difference. Everyone knows what FASR is. What I'm doing is I do formations putting in groups. Same as arrangements. Sequence is for me the top priority. When I learned calling, sequence was the only thing that I looked for. Relationship is evident. I said, I know there are 8 relationship states, but I work with 4, but then because 4 of the 8 relationships are out of sequence. So I only have to use 4 relationships which in sequence. And I put figures in groups. Let's look to the formations. There are a lot more formations, but that's are the most common formations in square dancing. That are formations that can use when you want to call an element left or right and left grand, except the two-faced line. The two-faced line is also in this group because a two-faced line is more common. So you have to look at this. I call it a situation because in case A, we need an A situation. And when we have B, the case B means one pair is, a couple is pair, one not. We need for resolving one of these formations. These ocean waves formations are tag formations between them, because the double pass through the center step to a wave, we have a quarter tag. H change through formation, step to a wave, we have right hand waves, and trade by position, center step to wave, and the 3/4 tag. So they're familiar. If you have other formations, you can look at this, but it's not helpful. It's too complicated, and it's mostly one call away from one of these formations. Arrangements. I do it in groups. I call it normal and unnormal or crazy. My system works in the 0 and 1/2 arrangement. So these 2 arrangements are normal for me. And the other arrangements are crazy. And normally you have to normalize your setup for resolving. Not for standard calling. If you have free caller, you can work with everything, but to resolve a square, normalize this into a 0 or half arrangement. If we do a 0 arrangement, you come to an element left. And in the half arrangement, we can resolve to a right and left grand. Let's look at the sequence. When we have the other rules, you only need to watch 2 boys or girls, also possible. And you can be quickly resolved because only 2 boys to watch is very simple. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at only at the 2 boys. And you can see they're out. Now in sequence, still in, still in, still in, out, out, in. You can very easy watch the sequence of these 2 boys. Out again, in, out. And we're home. It's very easy to watch only 2 boys. And relationship, the last of the phasor. I told you I only look at 4 relationships. These 4 relationships, they are in sequence. And these 4 relationships can be reached in a right and left grand. Each hand is one of the possible relationships. So if you resolve, you can, and everything is in sequence. You can call a grand right and left and stop at your partners on the 3rd or 4th hand. I don't use the 2nd hand because the 2nd hand is artful. This is only a pass through, and then the 2nd hand it will be there. It's too much to say for the callers for only 2 beats. That's not good. You can start with original partner or interrupt when partners are connected on the maybe 3rd or 4th hand. Important is the 4th hand will be a left hand. There must be a figure with a left hand, like a courtesy turn or a do passo or a turn into an element czar or something like that. Let's go back to here's an example for a full right and left grand. Here we have the half arrangement. And that could be the 2nd hand if we start it now. But the 2nd hand, it's not good to call. So in this case, take a pass through and a right and left grand, it's much better. okay, you're home. It's not forever, but you can also, after a right and left brand, swing and promenade or something. Another would be a fourth hand right and left brand. Here we have a half arrangement and start. Number 1 boy starts with a number 2 girl. That's the first, the second, the third, the fourth hand will be the partner. And then you can do passo or courtesy turn. And I have an example for the third hand. And they're still home. But you can also swing and promenade home. I know that some callers do not like home resolutions. I do. Figure groups. Now it becomes a little bit complicated. I put groups with figures or combination of figures together on their effect of the sequence based on the respective formation. There could be no changes of boys and girls, or some dancers, boys or girls, or ends, or centers, or left-hand dancer, or right-hand dancer. And I put it in the list. This is an example for mainstream, except one. Here are my formations. A situation and B situation. And here are my figures. I call it my colored list because it's very nice colored. The colors means what follows. If we started in a light yellow formation and it end in a light yellow formation, it's the same color. If we do from an, for example, HA through formation a stars or a slide through, it comes to facing lines, and that's the color from here. Or if we do a veer left or right, it comes to two-faced line. We have in this column no changes or changes for everyone. For the left-hand dancer, you see flutter wheel or reverse flutter wheel. Flutter wheel means for the left-hand dancer, mostly the boys, or reverse right-hand dancer, mostly the girls. And two columns changes the ends or the centers. That means in waves or lines. You normally cannot memorize this list, especially when you call some more programs. That could be a list that's with hundreds of figures. But there is another chance to memorize what happened. I found a graphical tool can be used, and with a line on it. And if two boys or girls go over the line, I wrote the red line because comes later. They change its sequence. This is my sheet I started with. The yellow dots are for two-phase lines or ocean waves. The gray dots are for A-chain through, trade by, double pass through or something. Also columns. And I found that only if a dancer crosses the short line, the sequence will change. And I asked Brett Christie to put such lines into Terminations, and I'm very happy that he did that. And I will show you something. So when I thought about this, I had the same a special question. Let's start the standard intro: square through, right and left through, dive through. And here comes the main question which every beginner calling has. When I was resolving a square pass through element left or square through 3 element left. In this case, of course, square through 3 element left. Same situation. If the caller did it wrong and he called a pass through instead of a square through 3, and now he called a square through 3, and the trade by is also an element left. And my question was, when the center is this one box of 4 doing a square through 3, and it changed the sequence, why is the same sequence change when 2 boxes doing the square through 3? And I put this line in my own sheet. The blue line is red and the other is that doesn't matter. And in this moment, forget the red line and only look at the blue line. What happened when we do a square through 3? The first hand does nothing, but the second hand, everyone crosses the line, and that means the sequence changed. Then we're doing a dive through and zoom, and here comes the same situation. The pass through does nothing, but here the next square through 3, the first hand does nothing. And only the center 4 crosses the line. And the couple 1 and 3 are outside the line. And so it's no changing of the sequence. The same number of dancers crosses the line in the square root of 3. So we change the sequence. Let's take a look on some other figures. Step to a wave. Swing through. First turn does nothing. When we do the second turn, only 2 dancers, in this case 2 boys, crosses the line. So it's a sequence changer for the boys. Another swing through. By the way, swing through is swing through, change the sequence of the ends. Here is the sequence of the ends. In this case, the girls are the ends. First hand does nothing, and the ladies, only 2 ladies crosses. And so the ladies also changed. 2 swing throughs crosses boys and girls. Next come a girl run. No changes. When we do a Ferris wheel, only the 2 girls, the ends, crosses the line. A Ferris wheel crosses sequence, changes sequence of the end. Pass through. When we do a boy run, only the center 4, but all the 4 center 4 crosses the line. So sequence of boys and girls are changed. Circulates mostly goes around the outside, so no changes. If we have an ocean wave or a column, a circulate never changes sequence. Instead, we have a split circulate. The next is girls run. The centers changed, both boys and girls. Step to wave, swing through the boys, changed. Boy run does nothing. Half circulate, bend the line, they're home. If you know which person crosses the line, then you know what dot the sequence changed. And that is easy to see. Let's take a look on the easy resolution system. I think that is one of the systems everyone learned at the beginning. Make 2-phase lines. Then look at the couples you memorized. If both couples pairs bend the line, make the sequence check. If in sequence, slide through grace to 3. If out, slide through or start through, pass through element left. If we have B or one couple is paired, you can have in your 2-phase line, the paired couple looks out as a leader or not. Then couple circulate, do a Ferris wheel, sequence check. In is pass through, out is grace to 3, element left. If we have no couple paired, do circulates and trades until you have A or B. I think that is the most common resolution system starting calling.
It's the basis of most of the resolution systems.
Yes, but For me, I think the sequence is the most important thing. And the sequence check is for A in facing lines and for B in a double pass-through position. I don't like to make two phase lines when I need a facing line or a double pass-through position. So I made my own resolution system that looks much more complicated. When all coupled paired, the goal is in facing line. Of course, you can have a two-phase line. Here is my starting formation. I have a lot of starting formations. Of course, the two-phase line and the bender line, that's the same as in the system before. But if we have in-phasing lines or ocean waves or double pass-through formation, I don't like to make two-phase lines when I need in-phasing lines. So I have some easy figures to get this in-phasing lines. Then doing a sequence check, same as before. When we have a B, there is the same thing. We started in different formations. The goal is a double pass-through position, and you can get it with these or other equivalents to get a double pass-through formation. If you have double pass-through now, I ask, is the pair outside? If not, zoom or equivalent, pass through, dive through, or something like that, and make the sequence check, same as before. Or we do the first sequence check, in or out, then pair is outside, then element left. If not, pass or trade right, element left, because the sequence is cleared. It's a little bit more complicated, but the step make a two-phase line is one step we can overgo. So I think it's enough for today.
Wow. I've got a couple of questions to kick off, and then I'm going to open the floor. Most of them are clarifications. The first one, Klaus, when you say real A and false A, is that paired? I'm trying to read this. Paired and key couples are on the same side and paired, and a false A is they're on the same side, but they're actually facing their partners. Is that correct?
Yes. If paired is a real A and it's false, it's in the same half of a square, but not paired.
Yeah. And a B is one couple's paired and the other couple is not paired.
Yes, but a real B is the one couple paired and the other not is the real B, and the false B is one couple is in the same half and one of the other couple, but not paired.
Oh, that would be like a right-hand lady grouping or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one was on the sequence effects, you're only looking at the center axis to follow the sequence change. Is that correct? I think that was when you were doing sequences. When you're following the sequences, if you're doing, for instance, a square through 3 or whatever, you're only looking at the 4 in the center on the short axis. Is that correct? For the sequence changes, who crosses over?
The problem is we have 2 axes, but we use only one, and sometimes we use the other. It's sometimes not easy which line, which axis we use. Let's have.
I think the question was because when you had the center axis, you were pointing out the center grouping of 4. You would say a girl would cross over, for instance, in a flutter wheel or in a change, or you'd have the couples would change on the center axis. And in some cases, like for instance, on a circulate boys run, everybody changed axes, but you are changed north and south, but you were only looking at the centers. I could be wrong. If you want to pipe in with your question, by all means, if I'm not getting that right, pipe in and clarify.
Let's look at the, let's take a swing through. The boys crosses now the blue line.
Yep.
If we do a circulate, all the dangers go around the axis. The blue one. But when we do a split circulate, you must change from blue to red, because let it slow. When we do a split circulate, the boy crosses the line.
Yeah.
If you look to the blue, never, no dancer connected with the line. But if we do split circulate, you have to change from blue to red.
And
another
that question came in when you were looking at columns.
Yeah.
I don't know if it came in 4 columns. I understand that. If that hasn't answered your question, please speak up.
Normal. When you do a circulate in columns, all the dancers go around.
Yeah.
And the same thing.
Now, if this is where the question was, if you do a boys run here, you've got the center 4 are crossing the blue.
Yes.
And that's all we're looking at is the change. The outsides, we're ignoring that. Is that correct?
We do it point part by part. But if the ends.
Klaus?
Ja.
Ich glaube, was die meinen, ist, dass du für den Sequence-Status nur die Centerbox oder quasi die kleinen Achsen in der Centerbox beachtest. Weil eigentlich gehen ja die Achsen komplett lang durch das Komplette. Aber für dich ist nur relevant, dass die in der Mitte quasi den Sequence-Change machen,
ja,
indem sie über die kleine Achse drüber gehen. Das war die Frage.
Yeah, for watching the sequence change, you must have the short axis. If we have the end boy run, no connection with the axis, no changes. If the center boy run, the boys crosses and the girl cross also. If you must know that the outside never crosses the line.
Okay, I think I can explain that in English, because it's a little bit, maybe a little bit disturbing, because we always have long axes, no matter we're talking in a square. But in this case, what Klaus means is that we're only taking the short axis. The center box is relevant for his sequence status in or out.
And not only the center box, because and we have and we work with two boxes. Also, the axis ends between them.
Yeah, I've asked Brett to add those small axes, those box axes, I call them, not the big square axis, but the small box axis. And you're talking about the little axis in the boxes, in the split box or in the center box.
That's the reason I normally talked as short lines and not the axis bit, because this long axis I normally used for example mental image callers, but for the sequence change you need the small lines.
Just to clarify, if you look at the dancers where they are right now, okay, can you just change the center, just have the center just do just have everybody do a boys run or something.
If everybody boy run.
Yep.
The
just
ends,
that's where I want to set it. Just do an everybody boys run.
At the end, nothing happened, but the center crosses the line.
Okay, and this is what I wanted to look at. So if you look at the boys, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at the girls, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're all in sequence there. If I have just the ends trade,
nothing happens.
Yep. I just want to show this because I think this is where the clear. So it looks like there's a change across, but if you look at it, they're still in 1, 2, 3, 4. The sequence hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is their physical position on the floor. And that's what he's saying about the sequence, why you watch the center bits.
And if the center is trade,
then we change the sequence.
There's the same when we look at my presentation. With my colored list. I don't have columns, but we have a double pass-through position. If we have an ends trade, nothing happened. And the centers trade change sequence of boys and girls. Same as California 12, of course. But it works also in columns.
Now, I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please pipe in. Mickey, thank you very much for translating what I was trying to get across. I didn't know how to explain it any better.
One more clarification.
Go ahead.
There's one more rule I forgot to tell you. If two dancers directly exchange places without crossing any line, for example, a zoom, that must be a change of the sequence, of course. If two boys change, let's do a boy run. And trade. The boys are in sequence. And if we have a zoom, out of sequence. That's why no crossing any line, but if two boys exchanging their places, there must be a sequence change. Same for girls.
Yeah, but if you would take the little cross now and, for example, move it over
no, I understand it. I understand it, Mickey. I'm just trying to relay the questions as they came in.
Yep.
Okay.
The last one, I'm not sure this is a question. It seems to be more of a comment. Your resolution system is the same as the friends or enemies or the pairing, but it looks like you're just picking up on the sequence at the resolution point when it's already established from lines or the double pass-through formation. That's all it was written. And to me, that reads like, rather than go through the whole sequence and establish a two-face line, pair up the key couple, put them on the outside, et cetera, and going through that whole routine, you're picking up the resolution at a point, either from facing lines or a double pass through, and then you're using any one of the other resolution systems, such as the zoom, pairing, the double pass through, because the resolutions are the same. That was just an observation, and that was pretty much what was said in the introduction as well. The way, Klaus, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you're looking at the square allows you to pick these things up at any point of your dancing to get to that resolution quicker, because you're not having to go through that whole sequence of setting up the pairing. And then you can just plug any one of these different resolution systems into your methodology.
The problem I have with, for example, mental image calling, there are also a lot of rules, but you cannot free calling. You must always, each figure you call, you must use the rules and always watch what happened. My system is a little bit different. You can free calling without any watching. And if you think, okay, that's time for resolution, you see, have we have A or B? Have we a real A or a real B? Have we a state? Have we which formation group we are? And so if we can have a fast resolution. Some more will be in the next session.
Okay, those are all the questions that were submitted. Guga, is your question the one you posted in the chat? Because you've got your hand up.
Here's a question: how do you deal with dividing squares, hourglass formation, or waves between mini waves? Waves between mini waves. At any time you have a wave that's directly on one line, it's not good to see. It's easy to come to normalize arrangement and formation in one of these listed formations. I know that callers can have modules from these situations, but I have no modules. I call totally free site calling.
Does that answer your question, Guga?
Not really.
Well, a copy of the presentation and a copy of the choreographic sequences that were shown are going to be posted with this session. Mark is going to be posting these on the OC Callers website. And we are going to have Klaus here for a second session to see where this goes from here in about 3 or 4 weeks. So sometime towards the middle or the end of next month. So take your time, digest it, download it, have a good look through it, because it is a rather unique way of looking at a square. It is a little more complex to try and digest this if you're hooked on your own methodology. If you take a step back from it, you can see how what you know and the different pieces of the routine, the different setups, the different resolution techniques all form into this. Let go of that, and you can use this to enhance your own calling ability or enhance your own system. If you don't have a system, this could be one that could introduce you to the sequencing flow. It makes, once you get it, a lot easier to actually manipulate the dancers on the floor quickly and effectively, but it is a little more complex to learn, but it's well worth it. To me, it's mental image calling is very complex to learn. But once you get it, it's something that's going to help you in all aspects of your calling. I have a feeling that this can do the same thing. It's got a lot of potential. It's a from what I've been told, this presentation has been given a fair bit in Europe, and you've done classes and sessions on it. There are a number of callers that use it, and they use it effectively. And from what I've heard, Claus uses it very effectively. Other callers have said, wow, to his calling, basically. So I think the technical term is the damn shit works. So have a look at it and try it out. Claus, I want to say thank you very, very much for coming in. We are going to get you back to do the second half of the presentation. And it is now 10 after 10 my time. So we're past the hour. I'll open the floor up for questions directly to Claus or anything that you want to talk about. And after that, we'll open the floor up for general discussion. So thank you very much, Claus. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
I think we have one person that still has their hand up. There's one person still has their hand
Guga, do you
up.
still have a question, or are you just haven't lowered your hand? There you go. Yes, Mickey.
I just wanted to say to Claus that even in real life, what he means in the other system, there are only 4 relationship status. There is only one possibility to have partner, corner opposite, or right-hand lady. So there are also only 4 relationship states. The other thing is with the sequence states. There you got in, out. There are also 4 sequence states. Boys in, girls in, boys in, girls out, girls in, boys out, everybody out.
Yep. Thank you.
And that doesn't change. A lot of this is very familiar to what you already know. It's just looking at it from a slightly different angle. Martin, did you have your hand up? Or were you it just passed in front of the camera there? Does anybody have any questions for Claus? Is everybody completely overwhelmed and they feel like their head's going to explode? I can't hear you, Guga. Yes, Mickey.
Yeah, I've made some notes. One was on the right and left grand, but on the second hand, I totally go along with Claus that this is too short. But an alternative would be go forward 2 and then into a courtesy turn or alamandara into a do paso would work. And that's a short term to achieve the same thing if you would like to do something on the second hand.
Yeah.
Second thing is, weak point seems a little bit too tough, maybe, talking about such a complex system. But if I understood it right, you always have to more or less get into a normalization or at least into a half arrangement. That means the other 4 arrangements, 1, 2, 3, 4, don't work with the system. You always have to get to either a normalized system, 0 arrangement, or a half arrangement. And maybe for a beginner, it would be easy to show ways how to get from one arrangement to the other in order to use the system. Otherwise, I think that's a weak point, maybe. Or only for experienced callers.
In answer to the question that came up, when we talk a half arrangement, it means you've got one couple or all the couples are half sashayed. That's all that means.
The point with the second hand on the right and left grand. Another way is doing a box sonnet and the runway grand, and then we comes to the 4th hand.
Excellent.
It also works.
Yeah.
And
I
yes,
personally like walk by 1.
yes. And the other thing is, yes, if we want to resolve a square, you have to normalize to 0 or half arrangement. But that is the thing what the other callers also need to do.
There's a lot of parallels, and there's nothing that any of the other systems that you have work great. And you'll see a lot of parallels between whatever system you're using when you get to the resolution and the system that Claus is presenting. It's eliminating, because you're in control of the sequence, you're in control of the flow, you're watching that you can pick that point when you get there. As soon as you get to that double pass through, you're going to know if you're at that point. And then it's just a matter of looking, are they in or out? Am I doing a pass through, or am I doing a square through 3? If I'm in a double pass through, or am I doing a slide through pass through, or a slide through square through 3? That's from all of the other resolution techniques that you have. You're just getting there faster because you're in control of the flow while you get there. And that's a very powerful tool to wrap your head around.
My goal in the system is when I call a dance, maybe on Jamboree or a special dance, or in club nights with a lot of more than 2 or 3 squares, I try to resolve a square when I see that one square is broken. I try to be with the running squares at home, being at home, the same time the broken square comes to home. It mostly works.
Do you have any more comments? Anybody have any questions for Claus, or any comments that they have? Has anybody ever tried this system other than Claus? Well, I strongly recommend, even if you don't transfer over or don't use it, that you take the time to go through it and look at it, because there are some aspects in it that you can incorporate into your own calling that are great user tools. Yes, Guido.
What I like is the sequence change when you cross the horizontal axis of, let's say, of a HN through formation or double pass through of a square that's horizontally in front of you. And this helps a lot to understand some of the well, I'll say, effects or that appear to you, but you really don't grasp. And
you can see it linear, in a linear formation right across the floor. It jumps out at you a lot quicker because you know what you're looking for.
Of course, I have not incorporated Claus' system into my calling, but parts of it enhance the understanding of what I'm doing.
I think the biggest problem what other callers have to work with my system is not to memorize the corner. The different look to the sequence of 2 boys. It's very hard to change from this to another system to look at.
I personally wouldn't say that having to memorize the corner is a habit. It's a side effect of memorizing 2 couples. I instinctively, or just memorizing 2 couples, I know where the corner is. But as I said before, crossing the line, the understanding of it, what it means, helps a lot, even if you use a different system.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have come to a lull. Oh, wait, sorry, go ahead, Malcolm.
I was only just picking up on one thing, which maybe I missed a bit along the way. I mean, the point, Claus, you said about not having to worry about your corner is fine if you've got your 2 boys and you've worked out whether they're in sequence or out of sequence. But you're presumably talking about your primary and just your secondary sort of boy. But and then you can do any number of right and left grands until you actually meet your partner. But surely that will only work if you've established the boys are in sequence, and that. But you've also surely got to think about the girls as well, because if you do that, just focus on the two boys, and you just do the right number of right and left grands until you meet your partner. If the girls aren't in sequence, then that's not going to work, then, is it? Surely there'll be the girls will be crossed. Is that another bit that I've sort of missed the jigsaw on that little part?
I hope I understand it right. I could not follow your detail. In the next part, there are some more rules, not so much, but one of them is in which situation is the sequence of boys and girls the same, and in which situation is the sequence of boys and girls different. And this is the rule that's very important to add on, because otherwise it could be what you said, the girls are not in sequence. But these rules we had not today.
That'll be further clarified in part 2, though.
I'll wait.
Yeah. Daryl, you have your hand up.
Oh, come on, get unmuted. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was quite late getting signed in. I was busy. Sorry about that. Talking about sequence with resolution. If you get to the corner, doesn't sequence take care of itself? If you resolve to the corner, doesn't sequence take care of itself? Like I said, I came in late. I'm not understanding. Yeah. I'm not understanding the reason for needing to know sequence.
Yeah. What part and parcel? Yes. When the setup was, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Claus, when you were talking the initial setup, we went through your Alaman positions, and in any of those positions where you can call an Alaman left, everybody will be in sequence. That part was covered right at the very beginning, because you have to be in sequence to call your Alaman left effectively. And those are your possible 8 positions around the floor. Now, within that, what we're talking about is moving the dancers around. And as they're moving around the outside, you only have to look to see who's crossing one of those access lines in the center. If they're moving around the outside, it's not going to change the sequence. One of those access lines in the center. And that's what you're talking about with moving or watching the sequence. At this point, correct me if I'm wrong, we're only following the boys. We noted our key couple following the boys, and we'll be looking at the girls, keeping them and watching the sequence as we're flowing. We're not controlling the dancers throughout the entire dance. We don't really care where anybody is through the dance. It's only when we get to that resolution point do we worry about the sequence. And I think, if I'm wrong, Mickey, if you wanted to translate that to Claus, I think that's the way you were going with this approach to looking at the square.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. We had not finished all the rules. If all the rules are correct, you have only to see to watch 2 boys or 2 girls, and yeah, that comes next time. Too much for one session.
And it's not a replacement. It's just a different approach to site calling that Claus uses. It's a system that he's developed on his own. A lot of callers have used it. A lot of other callers use different systems. And there are very, very many of them, but they all have the same thing in common. When you get to the Alaman left, no matter what system you use, if your Alaman left is everybody to corner, everybody's going to be in sequence. That takes care of itself. It's getting there and moving them to get there, which is half the battle for many people. Daryl, were you waving or did you have your hand up for a follow-on comment?
No, to me, sorry, but to me, there's only 2 Alaman formations to begin with. That would be in a trade by or an 8 chain through. That's all there is.
Was coming.
And diagonal opposites tells you what you need to know about everything else. If you've got 3 pieces of the corner couples in half of the square, you've got one in the other. If the corner is in those 3, the 2 corners are in those 3 pieces, you've got an Alaman left. If they're not, then you have a right-hand lady box. Does this make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. And that aspect is covered in what he was talking about with the true A, false A, true B, false B. It's the same principle. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. Like I said, I'm sorry I came in late.
No, that's all right.
But yeah, okay. I'll have to watch the recording of this and maybe I'll understand better the reasoning behind what I was hearing when I did come on.
I think the reason is it's in the starting of the session. I learned by myself without any material and without any other callers, and so I made my own system. And when I learned my own system, I do not learn to follow a corner. I learned sequence of 2 boys. Of course, 2 couples memorized, and so I built all this, all what's coming later on this system that we have. I need for resolving without knowing who the corner is.
Yep. Okay.
I
that I've got to see.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
I have when I call, I always tend to forget who's that second boy is. So I forget about him in the first place. So that instead of using 3 states, as Claus is doing, I use 2. They are either in a partner opposite place or they're a corner right hand ladies state. Those 2 things I try to keep track on, but then I use the girls to follow the sequence. Because I only need to remember the corner girl and the partner girl if I have a boy as the key dancer. And then I can very quickly figure out where I am and to get them out. But I would definitely use the girls to fix the sequence and to follow the sequence.
One of the things that jumped out at me directly is we had Bob Elling gave a presentation here. It was essentially on the chicken plucker, but it was a matter of maintaining the sequence, or rather doing the chicken plucker without the right and left through first, pass through trade by keeping everybody in sequence. That really gelled for a lot of dancers. Now, if we stop that at any one point, or if we stop Klaus's routine at any one point, or we look at a different resolution technique or a different dancer technique, you can apply every single system that you use to what the dancers are doing on the floor. What this is doing is looking at a different way of essentially tracking the dancers rather than actually moving the dancers. And because he's tracking them in a different manner, it makes it easier for him by tracking the 2 boys rather than, setting up that corner. But that's the way he follows the dancers around the square. And it's really quite effective. And it's a good thing to actually put in your toolbox because you can see things as they pop out at you. It's not different, or sorry, it is different. It's not a whole new way of square dancing because the dancers, whatever Klaus explains in his system, Daryl can say, well, if you look at this, they're in this, and there's the diagonal opposite, they're in this. And Mickey can say, well, in this system, they're here, they're here, they're here. This is the way I would track that. That's not the point. The point is what works for you is the best system. And there is not just one way of looking at a square. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted this presentation. I had Guido, and then I think Bob, and then Daryl again. So
just a side note, I've had the pleasure to dance to Claus, and I've had the pleasure to dance to Dave Prescott. And while both calling systems are quite different, Dave Prescott usually takes the mental image system, or his version of the mental image system, as the main choreography generator, and Claus takes his one. But both callers use different routes. For a dancer who is predominantly dancing to a chicken plucker caller, the choreography from Claus is totally different. You dance different routes, and it's more entertaining in this sense.
I think a lot of that is add on to that. It's just different calling styles as well. Bob, did you have a comment? No, you're still muted, Bob. There you go.
No, I didn't have a comment. I'm just listening here.
Oh, I saw the hand. I didn't know if you were waving. We've got Daryl, and then somebody else had their hand up. Guga. Okay, Daryl.
Okay. I understand that Claus is tracking the boys. I don't understand for a site resolution system, if you know the two adjacent couples, you ought to be able to look at any formation, stop any place, and divide that square in half mentally. You can look at the box over here, wave over here, diamond over there, whatever. You're going to have 4 dancers in that, aren't you? Even in a double pass through, you can split that double pass through formation into 2 separate boxes. You only have to look at one of them. If you know who those 2 couples are, and you can see how many of the corner people are within either one of those groups of 4, it doesn't make any difference. You only have 2 element lefts. If you get them to the corner, it's taken care of. You don't, the sequence is taken care, everything's taken care of. And as far as, can I make one more comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as chicken plucker is a basic traffic pattern, is all it is.
Okay.
And other than moving dancers from one side of it to the other, or changing the direction of the grid, that's all. Where can you go? Chicken plucker is the basic traffic pattern. Today we don't use the dive through, so the double pass through formation that's involved in it isn't used as much because they do the pass through trade by. But other than that, all we do in square dancing is move them back and forth across a grid and set up diamonds, or like you say, hourglasses or interlocks or anything you want when you're there, but it still boils down to two groups of 2 couples. And
that's exactly what Claus was saying as well. You either you're working up and down the axis, or as you say, on the grid, or you're moving around the outside of the grid.
Yeah, but you ought to be able to take either one of those groups of 4 and know where that element left is just by what you see, because there's only 2 possibilities for the element left. Now you've got 3 possibilities for those groups of 4. Somebody said it earlier. You've got opposite lady box. Yep. There's no way you're going to do an element left within an opposite lady box. Or you've got the corner box. Okay, element left is going to be in there. Right hand lady box. You're across the street. The only one that they didn't mention, I think, is partner box. where everybody's partner is within the same box. And of course, that's what you're going to get if you heads lead right and circle to a line.
That was actually mentioned before you came in. That's what he was talking about with the relays. Okay. The systems that how you're saying and how you're tracking is exactly the same.
I'm not tracking.
As far as what the dancers are doing, it's just you're just looking at different people to keep track of it. And
I don't keep track of it, Mel.
I was saying Klaus's system, and correct me if I'm wrong, Klaus, what you're looking at is you're not keeping track of anybody. What you're doing is you're tracking at a point, you're tracking. If you're in a double pass through, you're identifying who's where. The reality is you're doing exactly the same thing. You're just taking a different approach to looking at it and a different approach to explaining it. But essentially you're doing the same thing. And this is one of the reasons why I like to have different approaches, because what works for one caller may not work for another caller. And how one caller looks at a square may be different than how the other caller looks at a square, even though the dancers are doing exactly the same thing. And the rules, both of you could explain exactly the same thing using two different methodologies. One is clear one way, one is clear the other way, depending on who's actually explaining it. There's no argument with what you're saying, Daryl, because you're absolutely correct. And there's also no argument with what Klaus is saying, because he's absolutely correct as well. When you talk a real A, your partner lines are in a real A. If you're talking a real B, you've got one couple paired, one couple not paired, which is the same as what you were talking about with you've either got the centers paired or the outsides paired working down the grid. That group of three, you either got a corner group or a right-hand lady group. That part is exactly the same. You're just looking at it differently.
The difference is when we do a dive through, and beginner callers are very often asked, if you see your corner pass through element left, if not square so 3. That's not what I'm looking for. I do not know my corner. I'm looking when I did the dive through, if the two boys are in sequence or not. If they in sequence, pass 3 element left. If not, square so 3 element left. The method is exactly the same, but I'm looking not for the corner. I'm looking to the sequence of the two boys.
Yep.
That's
why
most
we were saying it's a tracking system.
Yes.
Yep.
And let me just, I was very happy to hear Klaus' presentation, because I believe it's very much the same. However, I also think that you don't just need to look at the two boys. You can also look at the girls if you want.
Of course.
Yeah, that's part 2. That's coming up in a few weeks.
No, that's for the ladies mostly. my system also works sometimes. We have squares I cannot memorize, but if I can see one couple, for example, couple number 4, and I can good memorize boy number 1 and lady number 3, it's still working. But there are 2 corner connections, and that could be maybe problematic for other callers. For me, it's no problem, because the 2 boys have to be in sequence.
And that's in another system, that's exactly where the principle of diagonal opposites comes into play.
Same thing is, I can also resolve squares when I watch couple number 1 in one square and couple number 4 or 3, not 3, couple 4 in another square, or couple number 2 in another square.
Yep.
It still works, but there is no corner connection. Mickey had a question.
Mickey, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Yes and no. There is a corner connection. Just because you use 2 couples in different squares doesn't mean that they're not connected, because your mind puts them in one square. and puts them together. I use that system as well. Not your system particular, but taking different squares of keeping track. Or even have a second square or formation for cross-checking. So usually it is, what you always have to remember is 4 dancers, and they have to be connected to each other. Now, whether this is the classical type thing, couple number 1 and couple number 4, or as Jolanda would say, couple number 1 and couple number 2, yeah, but also would work if we would just take the corresponding corner to it. If we take couple number 1 and have lady number 4 or boy number 2, this would work with an U, or as Klaus just pointed out, with the couple number 4 and lady number 3 and boy number 1. So all you need is 4 dances which are connected, and then the system works, whether it's your system, Klaus, or the traditional type thing regarding the sequence status.
Yeah, the difference is when people say, oh, you need to, picking your key couples, you're establishing a corner connection, and it doesn't matter which couples you have as long as they're diagonal to, 1 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and whatever. And they don't have to be in the same square. But 99% of the time, what we teach and what's being taught is couple number 1, couple number 4. That's what everybody does. For the ladies, it's slowly switching to couple number 1, couple number 2, because they track on the right-hand side a lot easier for that number 1 lady rather than number 1 man. Yes, there is a corner connection. For most of us, we've been taught to recognize that corner, but it gets very difficult if you're picking key couple number 1 in square over here and key couple number 2 in a square 3 over to the right and 2 back, because they're the only 2 that are, dressed alike, 2 couples on an entire floor of dancing. The system will still work. You don't have to worry about the corner, that relationship's there. By tracking those 2 boys and following these sequences, you're still going to have exactly the same thing as if somebody said, okay, there's my couple. My key couple is now, my primary is couple number 2 in that square, and my key couple is, or my other couple is couple number 1 in this square. The principle is exactly the same. It's just the application of who you're tracking and where you're going to start that methodology for the resolution, rather than setting up for a resolution or setting up a resolution technique and following it from start to finish. What you're doing is you're picking up that whatever resolution you prefer at the point where you recognize it, either in a facing line, double pass through, and you know what the sequence is because you generally put them there, or you'll only have to look at that grouping on the center axis to know they're either in or they're out.
Another point is the reason why a male caller normally memorize couple 1 and 4 is he sings as a couple number 1 man, and the ladies normally 1 and 2, because she looks at the lady number 1 and the corner. In my system, it could be every couple. I very often have couple 1 and 2, also couple 2 and 3. That's no matter, because 2 boys are in sequence or not, it's the same. It's, for me, it's no problem. In my example, I used couple 1 and 4 because it's for the most callers, the most common idea to memorize. But for me, it's every 2 couples are the same.
Absolutely. Betsy, you've been very quiet today. Or are you preparing your session for a few weeks down the road?
No, I'm just listening and learning how the mindset works. I just was thinking, talking about which couples you memorize, it also depends on the physical setup of the room. If I'm standing on a floor without a raised stage, I'm going to pick couple number 1 and 4, or 1 and 2 because I can't see beyond the tall guy who's in front of me. If I'm on a stage, I may pick 2 and 3, or 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, because how I pick it depends on who I will remember. My personal statement is, if my husband is dancing, it does not matter which part he is dancing, he will be one of my primary people. Because I'll remember if he's dancing the girl's part.
At least you can always remember one person's name, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, which is kind of fun to point out, in a discussion like this, there's going to be conflicting views, there's going to be confusing views as to who we're tracking, what we're doing. But the reality is, Klaus, your system, you're picking 2 couples right from the start. You're just looking at it slightly different. You're looking at the boys and the boys sequence. And as we progress in the next stage, we'll talk about the girls sequence. In standard site calling, in a standard site resolution method, you're picking key couples. That's in a pairing method, you're picking 2 key couples, and they're always going to be a diagonal set of couples, regardless of where they're on the floor, as long as there's one couple and another couple diagonal from them. That principle is the only principle that is really standardized across every resolution method and every calling method that I've seen, other than written, memorized, but even with modular calling, watching the floor to make sure that that's there, not so much, but the principle is still the same because you have to fix it. Every resolution technique has that same thing, picking out 2 key couples. It's what you do with them and how you track them to get to that point where you can manipulate the dancers to the resolution when you need it that is important. And whether you're working a grid, whether you're working a traffic pattern, whether you're working a center axis, or whatever you're using, it doesn't really matter. If it works for you, that's the best system. I strongly encourage every single caller, whether you're new or you've experienced or you've been calling for 60 years, if something comes out that you're not sure about or you've never seen before, have a look at it. You may not adopt it, but it's always good to see what's out there, because there's always going to be something in there that's of value to you to make you look at your toolbox just a little different, and that's always a good thing. Learn a new way to use a screwdriver. For my wife, it's, shoving it into my chest between the 5th and the 3rd rib, somewhere in there, but it's a new use for a screwdriver.
Not necessarily a good one.
Hammer around.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that we seem to have run the gamut of questions. Klaus, I look forward to the second half of the presentation. I want to say to Mark, thank you very much again. Mark does all of our groundwork behind the scenes, put everything up on the OC College website. Klaus's presentation from today and the choreographic notes are going to be posted up on the website, and you can rewatch the video with the notes and with the choreography if you wish. In a few weeks, probably about maybe 4 to 6 weeks. Is that a fair enough time, Klaus? Yeah, we'll set a date, but probably in about 4 to 6 weeks to have a look at, give you time to actually look at the system, digest some of this material, and we'll come back for part 2 of this session.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to open the floor up for general topic. If anybody has anything that they want to talk about, any square dance stuff they want to talk about, I should say. I mean, we'll talk about anything if you want, but or any topics, any choreography you want to have looked at, or comments, that kind of stuff, by all means, the floor is open.
Sweden starts their Olympics in an hour.
Sweden starts their Olympics?
Oh, well, no. Well, there's a hockey game, I think.
Hockey game. I've been recording everything and watching as best I can, and then fast forwarding through all the commercials.
What are commercials? We don't have any.
Well, you're lucky. Those are the advertisements that we pay to get, quote, free television.
Yeah, well, they have them. It's just what they do is they take all the commercials, instead of having 20 minutes of television lasting an hour and a half because of commercials, what they got is 20 minutes of television with no commercials, then they'll put on the commercials, then they'll have another 20-minute show. Or you'll
Well,
have
we
an
have to
hour
pay-
program and then the commercials at the end, so you don't have to watch them every, you know.
We have to pay for our TV.
Yeah.
And I usually forward to the commercials.
Either through taxes or by fees.
Yep. I get up and do something else during the commercials if I haven't recorded the show.
Well, when you watch some people on YouTube, they always or many of them promote VPN providers. If you get one of those, you will have the Olympics in Germany without commercials, but with German commentators.
That won't help me. I don't understand German well enough to do that.
The problem is that the German commentators don't understand winter sports.
Many of them.
Mickey, I want to say thank you very much for offering the translation services today.
Oh, welcome anytime.
Much appreciated. I know it gets a bit difficult. Callers get passionate about what we're talking about, and sometimes we tend to talk a million miles an hour, which makes it difficult. So thank you very much.
Welcome. And just to Guke, I would like to answer. If you think Germany doesn't know anything about the Olympics, just take a look at who's got the most medals at the moment, okay?
Ooh.
Ooh. Glad we're not competitive.
That's gonna change.
Ask yourself though, Mickey, who's got the most medals per capita?
Not Australia anymore.
That's all right.
If you take it back, you got the United States of America, and taking about thing, if you take Europe, United States of Europe, I think we're pretty far ahead then.
The United States of Europe.
Sounds good, huh?
I think it's still amazing that one of the really Nordic countries have gotten one medal in the Winter Olympics ever. Denmark. They have one medal in 1988 in curling.
Okay, curling, is that a sport, or I thought it was cleaning the floor?
Yes, you didn't qualify. But Australia took part in the curling Olympics this year, in the mixed.
Well, curling is probably one of the great Olympic sports, because where else, you know, curling and bowling should be there, because where else do you get a bunch of overweight fat guys drinking beer, throwing a rock down a sheet of ice or a sheet of plywood and calling it a sport? Where
Now,
only
you're
one
talking
guy's
about
active and the other three are sitting there or leaning on a broom.
Hang on, I'm an ex-tenpin bowler. Be careful.
I mean, if you look at the Olympics, what is it? The last Olympics, I think Bermuda was the top winner per capita. They were in first place. They got one.
That's all right. I want to root for the Jamaican bobsled team again.
I know Iceland got the silver medal in handball one year, which is quite huge.
When they started in the bobsleigh, when they started to count down, 1, 2, 3.
And that's when they had first the Swiss type thing, and when they said, no, we're going to do our own way. Yeah. They copied the Swiss, right?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
But I think this year a Jamaican is again joining, but with skiing.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen that yet. But I'm a couple days behind.
There was even
skiing didn't start yet. So
yeah.
There was even a Colombian in the cross-country skiing yesterday.
Maybe they're surprised.
The winner waited until he got to the finish line.
Maybe then they're surprised that snow is thicker than sand.
Yeah. Well, ski jumping seems to be too dangerous because they restrict it now, like for people or sportsmen, like Eddie the Eagle to join again. You have to have certain fulfill certain requirements to join. Yeah, he couldn't make it now anymore.
He had a hard time making it anyway.
Yeah, but he was part. I mean, everybody was looking forward. He was the star. Yeah.
Yes.
No matter how far the others jump, but I think that what made it Olympic a little more, lively and worthwhile watching, and for the average normal people, to kind of show. Yeah.
Right. If you want to watch things where people crash and whatever, watch the half pipe.
Yeah.
Or the short track.
True.
But Eddie the Eagle didn't crash that much. He was just not good enough to jump into the first rows. He was always a candidate for the first place when you count from the rear.
I think
well, I think he did well because he got the UK top marks. He was #1 ranked in the UK. He had the longest jump in the UK. The fact he was the only competitor was really irrelevant, but when you think about it, I think, well, Eddie, when he was at Calgary, right, met the guy, great time, but the issue with him is he jumped the 70, which gave him the qualification. Up to that point, everybody was cheering him as a sporting. He was camping under the jump. All the athletes got together and actually paid to get him accommodations and whatnot. All of that was there, and it was still a bit of a novelty joke because he had never gone off a 90-meter jump before. He'd never even jumped a 90-meter jump. And when he qualified on the 70s, that automatically qualified him for the 90s. And that was the big thing, was he decided to make that 90-meter jump. And even though it was a terrible jump, the fact that he landed it is what really cemented him as in, yeah, I'm here. This is not about winning the Olympics. This is about doing the best I can and representing my country in the best way I can. And that was why he was so special, because there was so many people, they win, but they don't try.
Yeah.
Like that. And
on the other hand, this is the Olympic spirit, to be with there and be at your best and do it. And I tell you what, I'm do downhill skiing. Yeah. And going down that 90-meter jump, it takes some balls to do that. I tell you. Yeah.
I looked at one time in the summertime and went, nope. And I've been on a lot of thrill rides, but I could see things broken at the end of that if I slid down that 90-meter jump.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be the ski jump that would be broken.
Would it be better if they had some kind of relay? One guys go down for the hill and push the other ones out from the steep.
I think they should bring back some of the older Olympic sports that were in there. Like you had. Tug of war is one of them. Deep diving. Not just diving, but how deep can you dive? One that they should not bring back is live pigeon shooting. That was actually an Olympic sport at one time.
At least not during the starting.
Yeah. I think Belgium won that with something like 25 birds shot down at once.
Oh, good heavens. Did they have pigeon pie later?
Sorry? I have no.
Did they have pigeon pie later?
Yeah, I don't know. Croquet used to be an Olympic sport.
I hope they had a nice barbecue after it.
I have no idea. But or the standing high jump. That would be great, because I've watched like some of the Innu in North America. They have a standing high jump where they basically put a ball on the end of a long pole, and some of these guys from a static position, they'll jump 12, 15 feet in the air and kick the ball. And that's from a static standing position rather than, there are some great sports in the past, but now we're getting into snowboarding. That's not a sport. Curling, that's not a sport. Bowling, that's not a sport.
But they also had the most successful flop. Fosbury fluff.
True. True. Yeah. Now we need Olympic sport. Like square dancing should be an Olympic sport.
Well, at least they had it. At least they had it in the opening ceremonies at Calgary.
Yeah. Right. But you know, we say it's non-competitive, but we have square dance competitions all the time.
But wasn't it talking about pigeons? Wasn't there in the LA that a lot of the pigeons they spread out were barbecued during the fireworks?
I don't know. I know the one I'm talking about was
yeah.
I think it was Paris in the late 1800s or 1900s. That's where pigeon shooting was actually. So it was probably passenger pigeons at the time, but that's where pigeon shooting was a sport, and it was actually because of the outrage. That's actually where they replaced it. Replaced live pigeons with clay pigeons because it created such an outrage.
Well, so. Nice talking to you all. I have to go finish getting dinner. I have a hungry husband.
It was 1900, Mel. 1900 in Paris.
Yeah. I knew it was Paris. I thought it may have been in the 1800s because passenger pigeons were a big hunting thing back then.
Thanks a lot, and vielen Dank to Klaus.
Klaus, thank you very much.
Yes.
If nobody has anything else,
no, I wanted to
thank you to everybody for coming in. If you've got something to add, by all means, I can leave the room open, but I think I have to go and get the lawnmower out and do some yard work. I've got a house inspection coming up this week, so.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so your back is doing great again.
Sorry?
So your back is doing great again.
No, but I'm still working on it. It may take me a little longer, but I'm getting there.
Good.
And I think my wife doing all of the yard work and all the heavy lifting and all the housework and everything else for 2 years, I'm getting to the point I don't think I can milk it any longer.
Oh, no.
Probably not.
No, she's absolutely fantastic and patient, but getting out and doing the lawn, we've got a lighter lawnmower and it's good for me. It's a little bit of physio. So.
Betsy?
Yes.
You reminded me when you said you were standing on the floor with the dancers and Colin.
Yeah.
And the tall guy in front. I once was calling at a club night with Joe Cromer. He's a pretty tall guy, and there was a guy in his club. He is another head higher than than Joe, a real tall guy. And so I started calling. I was standing on the floor, and that guy right in front of me was standing there. And Joe said to him, "Come on, just move on." He does it every time with me, Mickey. And I said, "I don't worry, but see, I'm not as tall as you, Joe. I can look right under."
There was a festival where Mike Jacobs was standing on a low stage, and there was a table, and he had a podium, with a portable podium so to put his notes on. And this guy who was named, he was from Texas, he's named Wacky Wackerbean. Wacky was able to stand on the dance floor and try and look at Mike's notes. So he would have been the one in front of you.
But Mickey, then you start to appreciate still the couple routines. The first paddle call you do, the first sequence is still the bucket, and then he's on the side position.
Yes.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you realize with the Colin, with the first call, I had him gone, and and he didn't interfere anymore. If he was on the side, he would have been right in front. So that was perfect, But there was a laugh right at the beginning of the night, and
absolutely,
it was cool. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, I'm gonna go get dinner. Bye, guys. Bye, ladies.
Bye, Betsy.
Bye.
Bye, Betsy.
I just Googled strange Olympic sports. One of them was motorboat racing, skateboarding.
You have to have water skiing,
bowling, basket pelota, which is kind of like a version of squash, but with hard rackets, or the hand lacrosse, scoop ball, hurling. bottom line fencing, jeu de pain, which is indoor tennis on a squash court. Motor car racing. Car racing was an Olympic sport in the 1900s. Table tennis, surfing was an Olympic sport. I could see that. Rock climbing, croquet, BMX bike riding.
Yeah. And in
I still don't know.
1904,
Sorry?
and in 1904, tobacco spitting.
Yeah. The one I get is solo synchronized swimming. How does that work?
I don't know.
3-on-1 basketball, or we used to call that scrub ball, but yes, water skiing was there. American football was in the Olympics. Roller hockey was in the Olympics. I have no idea what korfball is, but apparently it's something like a soccer ball with one basketball hoop.
Korfball is something like basketball. Just a German variant.
How about cornhole?
Cornholing.
That's
Gliding.
That's a professional circuit now, cornhole.
Yeah. Gliding was an Olympic sport. Like gliders.
One of my other hobbies is kite buggy driving. It could be also Olympic.
Surf life saving. That was an Olympic sport. Ballooning. There's a good one for you. Hot air ballooning.
Yeah.
Live pigeon shooting, tug of war. I don't know what Soren Mate is.
It's the fun fact for the Australians: an Australian and a Belgian won the event of live pigeon shooting with 21 pigeons each.
21? Yeah.
Hmm?
I knew a Belgian won it. I thought it was
And
about
an
25 or
Australian.
so, but
What does
I
it
didn't
say
know.
here? Like a Donald McIntosh from Australia and a Belgian called Leon de Lund. You know, Professor Dr. Mult, Google knows that.
There's, these are some of the sports that should be in the Olympics. So one is wife carrying. Guys have to carry their wives through an obstacle course. Chess boxing. So 11 rounds, they alternate between playing chess and boxing. Cheese rolling is a good one. There's one, it's called extreme ironing. And that's things like ironing in very, very extreme places, like hanging upside down off a rope on a cliff face with an ironing board set up. Egg throwing and catching, underwater spoon hockey. Toe wrestling, there's a good one. Then there's one here, musical canine freestyle. I have no idea what that is, but it combines tricks, dance, and obedience training for dogs with music.
Dancing with dogs.
These are suggested demonstration sports. So, the Olympics has kind of lost the plot anyway. Anyway,
it's interesting how much more casual people are about it. It used to be that once the Olympics were on, everything else stopped.
Yeah, well, I think that changed with the American basketball team one year, because it used to be if you were a professional athlete, you weren't allowed to compete in the Olympics. It was for non-professional athletes. That's what leveled the playing field. And then after a while, they said, okay, well, we're going to allow endorsements, and then, but not professional athletes. And then it was, oh, okay, well, we'll allow professional athletes because it's different. And there was a big protest. And then I think when they had the American Dream Team, the salary of the American Dream Team, one of the players' salaries of one of the players was bigger than the gross national product of 5 of the competing countries that were in the Olympics. And that just sort of, what's the point? I thought it was absolutely great when Yugoslavia almost took them to town because here, you know, one of the guys is getting 86 million, another guy's getting, you know, $120 million a year. And you've got these players that are, you know, 5 of them living in a rental cottage, having to share a Volkswagen that they fix on the side of the road just to get to a basketball game. And yet they're competing one-on-one and quite effectively. So I sort of gave up watching it after that.
Yeah, and when politics start to interfere, like it is now with China, there's a lot of criticism and a lot of relevant critique. So the sport is in the background. And then there are some strange decisions, like when they had 5 contestants of the, what was it? Something ski jump, or where they said their suits were illegal.
Yeah. Oh, because it had a drag coefficient, or the swimsuits that had the little fin on the top of the head because it allowed them to channel water more efficiently.
Well, but you got to make your mind up, you know. Well, feed the athletes correctly so they don't lose weight.
Next thing you know, they're going to be doing the swimming and saying, well, if you're larger than a size 10 foot, you're not allowed to compete because it gives you an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have a square dance caller in the Olympics competition. You can all vie against each other and see who the best caller is. No takers?
Yeah.
I was just looking up. Okay, 3.4.
Anyway, I'm going to head off, everyone. Thank you. Before I go, Yolanda and I are going to give you a Yellow Rock virtual star. Okay. So there's our Yellow Rock. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I was just curious. So I was looking up products. Now these are in gross national products by the millions. So 1,645,000 million. So here we go. So when we look at gross national product, the American basketball team was $3.4 billion. That was their salary for going to the Olympics, which was higher than, hang on, we go here. 4, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Grand Cayman Islands, Guam, French Polynesia, Somalia, Barbados, Fiji, Maldives, Eswatini, Djibouti, Liberia, South Sudan, Andorra, Burundi, Greenland, Aruba, Morocco, Central African Republic, Lesotho, Eritrea, Gambia, going down some of the more like Grenada, Dominica, American Samoa, the Marshall Islands, the Cook Islands, higher than the gross national product of all of those countries. And in some of them, when you take the bottom 10, it's larger than the gross national product of all 10 of those countries combined. To me, and they're all competing in the Olympics in the same sport, to me, there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Very.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't begrudge them. I figure if anybody